This is Peace and Progress Through Education. The topics covered today include qualities of effective leaders, leadership styles, diversity and leadership during globalization, trustworthy leadership culture. We begin the presentation with an objective embedded in a disclaimer. Things go exactly as you see them, almost all the time. It would be nice if it wasn't so tragic. Because community standards and individual behavior varies, you may be exposed to content that you find offensive or objectionable. An astute observation from Dr. Grant. I see now your perspective and how you are able to use information from various platforms to be a collective voice. Yes, please. Welcome. This presentation presumes the opposite of our textbook, and that conforming is low on the critical thinking scale. Granted, Lucy and Achua 2023 are speaking of followers. To be a good leader, especially in social media, requires conforming to the needs of the people. This behavior demands a lot of thinking. In so doing, new behavior patterns are discovered. Some of these include healing, mastering, protecting, networking, assessing, integrating, and experiencing. Followers in this leadership paradigm are best to be awake, alert, and aware of what's happening in and around them at all times. Begin the journey with an eye toward healing. Consider a course exploring how online discussions develop social skills. To be sure, virtual reality, VRGET, virtual reality graded exposure therapy, is currently being used in this fashion to treat established cases of PTSD by desensitizing individuals to innocuous dynamics, thereby increasing innate resilience. Alhuthe 2024, February 11th. Don't mistake my experience for medical advice. Go talk to your doctor for guidance. Frankel, as cited in Ludwig 2014, explains that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Page 73. This sounds amazing. I'm in. Being as we are teaching, and we know the healthy focus is on the learners, we consider appropriate methodologies. Mastery learning is based on the premise that every student can master a topic if they are provided with the right conditions for learning. This approach allows students to move forward when they've mastered a task, concept, or skill, and teachers to spend as much time as needed for each learner to succeed. What no date. This is my favorite teaching and learning method. It's what I'm doing when I use a translator to help me understand what I am seeing when conversing in a foreign language. I don't tell all of this story. There is a need to respect the confidentiality of everybody. Alhuthe 2024, February 13th. Yes, of course I've heard a terrifying secret or two. Haven't you? When I returned from Africa just days before the Arabic Spring, my Facebook accounts were networked so heavily that I was only 2.5 people away from anybody. My network has only grown since that day. Think about it realistically, in terms of the technology. A quick introduction to concepts that will be developed further on. First, realize that learning continues outside of the schoolroom. Adenigba and Osanya, 2021. Online learning provides the opportunity for assessments of higher cognitive functions. McKim, Jolie, and Cantillon, 2003. Now to look at the assessment process. Begin by writing clearly defined objectives. Next, identify lessons by correlating objectives with material. Consider the level of knowledge. Facts, concepts, procedures, and metacognition. As the internet is dynamic, the focus lies in formative or developmental thought processes. Work to create assessments that are meaningful, motivational, engaging, and insightful. The student should be learning something. Remember that formative assessments provide feedback. Consider presenting a case study of current event from multiple national news sources to assess critical thinking. These are adult activities preceded by ample emotional awareness and fact definition exercises. Ask students to write a one-sentence summary that answers the question, who, when, where, how, and why. Angelo and Cross is cited in Sewell, Firth, and Colvin, 2019. The one-sentence summary provides information about how students synthesize and summarize large amounts of information into one sentence. Page 301. For integrating, we're going to look at how AI is coming into society. Specifically, AI is, AI does, AI remembers, AI safety, AI in war, and AI concern. Artificial intelligence, AI, is a term coined in the 1950s by John McCarthy to describe efforts to develop machines that could reason and solve problems in human-like ways. Now widely applied to any software that can identify patterns in data. Rosenberg 2023. Artificial intelligence allows machines to model or even improve upon the capabilities of the human mind. Schroer 2024. As a kindergarten instructor with 25 understudies, you incline toward 50-minute illustrations with follow-up exercises. ChatGPT recalls this while assisting you with making illustration plans. Irfin 2024. The prospect of AIs with superhuman intelligence and superhuman abilities presents us with the extraordinary challenge of stating an algorithm that outputs super-ethical behavior. These challenges may seem visionary, but it seems predictable that we will encounter them, and they are not devoid of suggestions for present-day research directions. Yampolsky, 2019. But critics question whether Gospel or other associated AI systems are in fact performing as the military claims. Claft notes that artificial intelligence depends entirely on training data to make its decisions. Our regional human rights groups are asking if Israel's AI targeting system has enough guardrails. What do you do? Algeria asked. Build a network and promote lifestyles, I replied. Is there hope for that? Although it was a horrific journey, we exceeded our goal. Reggae is now a recognized genre on the Universal label. Annual is cited in Al-Huthe 2024, February 26. It is also a recognized intangible cultural heritage with UNESCO. Reggae is cited in Al-Huthe 2024, February 26. 10 years. It's rumored that my value according to Jamaica is $106.5 million. Conservatively. Will I see a dime? Point being, the process obviously works famously. Now we'll look at two leadership styles, charismatic and transformational. Charismatic leaders have higher risk orientation, emotional appeal, oratorical eloquence, and empathy. The message can be slanted, especially in political satire, although it makes people think it can lead, you need to be careful. Dr. Grant wonders whether I can think of any charismatic leaders who did not necessarily embody the traditional ideations of charismatic. If so, how did I respond? This gets into a discussion of domestic violence on an international scale. I don't know if anything more needs to be said about that. I can't even blame it on the music industry because I've learned that my situation was extreme, singularly unique. Most people are just doing their thing, working hard to create good vibes for happy people. This news came to me from somebody who watched everything as it was happening. I couldn't imagine. My response was to ignore the bad behavior and focus on the good. It's a parenting discipline technique. It worked so well that they didn't completely destroy me. Plus, we were able to create something amazing. This video is charismatic because he's using a musical rhythm and a lyrical pattern that is tied to a superstar. It's a predictable association. The tricky part is being aware that the content is extremely slanted. It may be the truth, but it's definitely only one side of the story. That's a lie that you have to watch when you're a responsible, charismatic leader. I had to delete the video on this slide for copyright. You can follow the URL if you'd like to see it.
The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man yuhram al-rifqa yuhram al-khayr." He who is deprived of kindness is deprived of goodness.
Effective transformational leaders know that to succeed with followers, they must first earn their trust, commitment, and respect. Page 427, Luciana Chua. Well, I know this isn't true. The reggae industry did not respect me, nor did they trust me. I had their commitment because I had their attention. I could do for them what they could not do for themselves. We were bound to each other until they learned enough to build their own networks and run their own businesses. In the meantime, they just kept me ostracized and under siege, allegedly. No worries. I learned to do something that nobody else in the world has probably ever done in this generation. Successfully work with a small but world audience who hated me. And that's a tough one. Now, if I could apply these skills here, humanity will win this war, probably, most likely, God willing. When, in the short term, I can't do anything about an oppressive situation, I turn to behaviors that help me cope and stay strong. I did a lot of self-therapy during my decade as an alleged human slave. Healthy exploration and bonding seems to be antidotes that mitigate against violence and disorder. That's Levine as cited by Al-Houthi 2024, March 1st. Good news. Yes, we have good news. Uncle Khalid is alive and well, still taking care of cats in Rafah. Diversity in leadership during globalization is flexible, comprehensive, and inclusive. Take note, technology has had a direct impact on diversity through globalization. People have the capacity to say hello to anybody pretty much anywhere in the world. This is shattering barriers and consolidating cultures. The emotional upheaval is tangible, predictably. I remember the first day I signed on to social media to see thousands of people waiting for me, speaking languages I didn't even recognize. I felt like I had stepped into a no man's land. Nothing I'd learned had equipped me to cope with what I was feeling in relationship to what I would be doing. That's not entirely true, though. Chico State University had derailed me onto a path of emotional awareness in relation to resilience the year before. Consequently, I had acquired some fundamental skills in how to cope with my feelings. My time overseas had also educated me. The interpersonal relationships I had experienced, along with the coursework I had studied, obviously gave me what I needed. We must not only believe that things must change, but believe that we must change them. They will not change unless we change ourselves. At Ombud 6, 2024. Sincere and serious change is uncomfortable because it challenges the known with the unknown. This is scary until we discover what is not threatening. Propaganda has conditioned our cultures to believe a certain way. Until these perceptions are challenged with reality, they dictate direction. We can only make decisions based on our comprehensions. New horizons mandate new vision. Be flexible. Iran says we will soon pray in Jerusalem, and Israel says we will soon pray in Tehran. They spent 17 years performing ablution in Iraq, 14 years rinsing their mouths in Lebanon, 10 years performing cleansing in Syria, and 6 years performing tayammum in Yemen. At Agdas 1, 2024. The proceeding appears to be a lifestyle conflict. Once you look up new words, you will see they are all references to Islamic prayer preparation rituals. The time frames represent how long the Western world has been involved in various Muslim countries. The opening sentence reflects comparable statements made by the West and the Middle East. Israel is considered the West. The following sentences describe what has been happening in relation to those initial utterances. I was going to share a lecture from Al-Libi 2024 on the impact of globalization, but this presentation is already long enough. Suffice it to say that leadership and globalization can be broken down into three things: money, weapons, and theology. People disagree on how to distribute and use these things. Aside from this, we can talk about globalization and its impact on leadership from a perspective, conversational luxury. There is nothing wrong with talking about the International Coalition Against Racial Discrimination, human and animal rights, spreading democracy, equality between the sexes, protecting the planet from the ozone hole, and programs to care for the environment and address pollution, even though no one can prove the true percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Ultimately, it's time to drop the great deception called globalization and return to raising the slogan of the national state, as Trump said, America first. Compliments of Libya. By providing access to diverse perspectives and interactive tools, hypermedia can help users make more informed and objective decisions about when, where, how, and why to use technology in education. Trustworthy leadership culture includes a myriad of things: teams and no blame, reveal justice, check sources, vary perspective, embrace philosophy, be mindful role model, consider new mindsets, travel new paths. You're embracing the more academic side of your anecdotes, Dr. Grant 2024 private conversation. Yes, this is true. It's just not easy. Synthesizing academic journal articles is a labor of love. It's just that a lot is happening, and summarizing it as we speak has become rather time-consuming. I'm learning firsthand how hard it is to write a short story that coalesces academic concepts with current events. Plus, we have new people on the scene. No sooner do I think I'm done, a key variable changes. Diversity is certainly dynamic. It's okay. I was conditioned to do this in the immediate wake of 9/11. Teaching college freshmen how to objectively analyze the presidential address the next morning was no small task, but we did it. As psychologists agree, any memory that comes with a lot of emotion leaves a long-lasting impression. That's the goal of this presentation, make a memorable impression.
الشعور كنت أحس فيه قبل التنشيط هو إن كنت أحس حالي متضايقة وزعلانة. لما بعد ما كانوا ينشطوني صرت أحس حالي مبسوطة. الأغاني اللي كانوا يعلموني إياها المنشطين كنت أنقلها لأولاد عمي فوق في الصف الحركات. احنا لما نعمل هاي الأنشطة بنكون ناسيين عن الأكل وعن الأشياء هذه والوضع اللي احنا فيه. أنا بدي أوجه رسالة للناس اللي بتشوفني، إذا احنا ما متناش من الحرب حنموت من الجوع. هل أراك سالما منعما وغانما مكرما. كنا قبل في مدارس الكويت وقصفوا علينا مدارس الكويت وجينا على المدارس أبو لقيت احنا عشنا بمعاناة صعبة جدا وكنا وفيش اكل ولا شرب ولا كهرباء ولا مية. حسوا فينا زي ما احنا بنعيش. كنا قبل الأنشطة اللي دربناها كنت زعلانة وبحس بالحرب وبحس بالقصف اللي بيصير دايما. أما لقيتي صرت أحس بالشعور والإحساس وبطلت أتذكر يعني معاناة الحرب اللي بتصير معنا وصرت أفرح عن نفسي وأتعلم من الأشياء وأبعتها لصحباتي وبنات عمي. لا نريد ذلنا المعبدة وعيشنا المنكدة. هذه اللعبة فتحي وردة غمضي وردة كنا نلعب فيها في أيام الحرب وبيلعبوا فيها من كتر الزهق. بس احنا نعيش طفولتنا، بدناش نتهجر من مكان لمكان. هذه ارضنا فلسطين، بدناش نزحزح منها. انا صار عندي صديقات جداد، صحباتي جداد. انا كنت في ضغط نفسي، لقيت فرغت كل ضغط نفسي. احنا مثلنا مكتوبة على جبينك بطل وموطني مشان نوصل رسالتنا للعالم. أنا المنشطة ملك حمد من سكان بيت حنون. تهجرت لمخيم جباليا، فلما جينا على المخيم هنا وشفنا فيه أطفال كثير عندها نفسيتها كانت سيئة جدا، فكان أول ما جينا طبيعي كان القصف شغال، فكونا فريق عشان نعمل أنشطة للأطفال. هدفنا كان انه طلعوا الطاقه السلبيه اللي جواتهم. حابه اوصل رساله للناس اللي بتشوفني انه الاطفال هذه بتستحق تعيش زي بقيه الاطفال العالم، بدها حريه. لا اسمي بلبل. اما نلعب بسط، اما نلعبش بزعل.
Classroom assessment is not an assessment that is only done in the schoolroom. It can be done outside the schoolroom as well, analogous as in a laboratory, field, official or unofficial way, or be purposely administered, integrated into the literacy exertion. Saifuddin, as cited in Adanigba and Onasaraya, 2021, page 222. This assessment is being done online. The children and the videographers are all displaying good teamwork. The production is a success. They all cooperated. 2 or more people make a team. Let's see if you and I can make something amazing. The titles on these PowerPoint slides set out clearly marked objectives. Hunger 2020, page 17. This is an academic goal. Never blame anyone. Stopping internal wars requires telling the truth as it is so that we can understand and realize what is going on around us. Manipulating us with false slogans has only produced more wars and destruction. God created us to populate the earth and created people for us to get to know each other and improve our lives so that we deserve the status of human being whom God has honored above the rest of his creatures. Al-Algeria 2024 private conversation. Once you are concentrating on solutions and take responsibility to make changes, your propensity to blame others will also start to dissipate. As John Gordon has stated to me, we don't live our lives based on reality, we live our lives based on our perception of reality. Farber 2010. Justice is an integrated system based on the lofty principles of humanity, which are achieving rights and following recognized human values and ethics. The guarantor of justice is the legal system and its enforcement mechanisms. Under the auspices of moral, historical, and moral responsibility, where there are no excess or negligence, and there is no room for complete commitment to divide or give priority to the private interest over the public interest. It necessarily requires an immediate cessation of the aggression, the removal of injustice, and reparation of the harm. It requires reward for the doer of good and punishment for the wrongdoer. Al-Libi 2024 private conversation. Checking sources requires writing clear objectives, looking at live video, photos, establishing historical accuracy, coming to logical conclusions, assessing public vulnerability, and determining political power. Websites that are just repositories of knowledge without links to learning, communication, and assessment activities are not learner-centered and cannot be considered true web-based learning courses. In reality, most web-based learning courses are a mixture of static and interactive materials. With all types of learning, including web-based learning, it is useful for students to receive constructive, timely, and relevant feedback on their progress. Assessment of higher cognitive functions, such as analysis and synthesis, will require more complex tests, and the teacher is likely to have to do a substantial amount of work before he can add his or her comments in the student's record. In the meantime, let's break down credible message design. This is my feedback to producers. We, the viewing public, are going to change the way we consume multimedia online, hypermedia, in order to deflate the emotional impact and decrease its power to control our reactions. The goal is to increase rational thought so as to best and most quickly find an equitable solution to violent behaviors existing from ancient history. Learning activities and assessment are connected very closely in well-designed online courses. The first step in making connections is to identify the desired course objectives. The syllabus should clearly state information about course learning objectives, learning methods, and how learning assessments will be used. Typically, instructors use Bloom's 1956 taxonomy to write objectives for learning gains in 3 domains: cognitive, what the learner should know; psychomotor, what skills the learner should be able to do; and affective, how the learner feels or modifies his or her attitudes. Instructors further specify a desired level of learning for each domain. Within the cognitive domain in higher education, the higher order skills of application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation are preferred for course learning objectives. Sewell, Firth, Colvin, 2019, page 297-298. After writing or analyzing course-level learning objectives, the next step is to identify individual lessons, learning modules, that constitute the course. Learning objectives should be specified for each lesson using the same process of identifying the learning domains and the levels of learning as course objectives. The lesson objectives should clearly map back to the course objectives and support achievement of course objectives. Course objectives should clearly map up program objectives and program objectives to the overall college university general education objectives. Sewell, Frith, Colvin, 2019, page 298. In this case, the comprehension is for source credibility. Live video tends to be very credible. We may not know why the boy cried, but we can see that he is making motions that indicate he is hungry. It's probably safe to say one has something to do with the other. The tough part is rising above emotions well enough to draw these conclusions. That's normal. Take a second to breathe.
أنا الطفل اللي شايبته تراب أرضه وكل ما تقتله تلقوه في غيره بيت ولب برضه أنا الطفل اللي شايبته تراب أرضه وكل ما تقتله.
A deeper examination of the work reveals how the taxonomy acts on the various levels of the knowledge dimension: factual, conceptual, procedural, and metacognitive. Sewell, Frith, and Colvin, 2019, page 298. Metacognition is just paying attention. Having established videos is highly credible, it's okay to begin breaking down the elements in this production. Facts: airplane in flight with hangar door open while releasing closed containers and parachutes over what appears to be a residential neighborhood. Concepts: uniform and airplane design indicate military. The appearance indicates packaged goods. Procedures: this is where activities in the video are interpreted by your thoughts. Be aware of both. Yes, it appears to be an airdrop. Metacognition: start sorting everything, including emotions. This is about being aware and understanding your thought processes. Classroom learning assessments are regarded as both formative, developmental, and summative, final. Both types are appropriate to online learning. Sewell, Firth, and Colvin, 2019, page 298. Now, to assess the situation from a different point of view, the next video appears to be satellite imagery. The source tends to establish credibility. In a formative assessment, the challenge would be to determine whether the viewer can apply the previous analysis skills to this imagery. Does it look like people swarming aid trucks? These are facts and concepts. What could be inferred by the movement and proximity of the people? These are procedures and insights. Exemplar assessments, whether classified as formative or summative, are meaningful, motivational, engaging, and should guide the student in the learning process. Sewell, Firth, and Colvin, 2019, page 299. Being aware of the learning assessment levels of knowledge, facts, concepts, procedures, and thoughts, apply them to a still photo. Without going into detail, does this look like an aid box covered with blood? Can we draw at least one fundamental factual conclusion from this analysis? Yes, it appears that someone was bleeding on a food box. The caption adds details that, at this early point in the publication processes, still need to be confirmed. Formative assessments can be anonymous surveys, or they can be individual or group learning activities. In all instances, feedback rather than grading is the ultimate goal. Sewell, Firth, and Colvin, 2019, page 300. Having seen and applied the learning assessment levels of knowledge in relation to mass media design 3 times now, the viewing audience should be able to name them and begin explaining their application in relation to the facts and allegations in the video. Again, watch for emotions. They are distracting. Feel them, breathe, and then think, what's happening here?
هذه الشاحنة لنقل المساعدات لشمال قطاع غزة طريق شارع الرشيد شارع البحر، ولكن أصبحت مليئة بالشهداء والجرحى والمصابين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. الحالة صعبة جدا جدا جدا.
Case studies are often used to assess critical thinking by asking students to solve ill-defined problems reflecting the real world and without a clearly identified correct answer. Sewell, Firth, and Colvin, 2019, page 300. In thinking about Gaza in relation to Israel, what exactly are the different explanations for this situation? Take note of how Palestinian journalist Motaz explains to Western media what he sees happening. Consider Excellent Libby's question in reviewing history. I'm looking for a common thread between the fighting factions. Can you help me? It gets very difficult for people to emotionally comprehend what's happening, so they make up explanations that allow them to tolerate the feelings. We can say the wildest things. Is this a logical conclusion? Don't leave the riot hungry. If you do, public vulnerability. Listen to the appeal of the Palestinian ambassador. Note his emotions. Identify facts, concepts, and procedures in relation to your thoughts. If you're still doubting whether all this is happening, turn to a reliable American resource. We are going to Senator Warren. Just today, Americans woke up to the fact that Israeli troops had opened fire on Palestinians desperate for humanitarian aid. These next few slides may seem like they're disconnected, but they're a process of decompressing and coming back into focus. It's what I have to do whenever I process extremely emotional information like what we just did. I listened to Libya. He's talking about varying perspective and considering the new silk line. You can Google it and see what's happening. And I said, it sounds like you're talking about Ukraine and Syria and Iraq, but the USA left Syria and Iraq. Well, like the Ukraine, he says, it applies to Palestine, it applies to Libya, and to all the regions that will be the new Silk Line corridors, a great Middle East with a new map. Let's not forget Saudi Arabia and Egypt. I said, this is nauseating. He replied, the evidence is that the whole matter is programmed and subject to the management of the unified protector. That's NATO. And the role of the peoples of the region and their leaders is nothing but the role of donkeys as pioneers. What Al-Dabeiba did, promote by his ignorant media about the Libyan leadership playing the role of mediator between the two parties to the conflict in Sudan, is evidence of this. At a time when Libya is suffering from fragmentation, division, strife, and division, and the drums of war are beating from time to time, how is it appropriate for the leadership of Libya to play the role of mediator of its interests outside its borders? Something that you cannot classify under ignorance, arrogance, madness, or subservience. I revisited the nauseated feeling, and he said, unfortunately, yes. Libya issued a challenge. Now it's up to me to defend myself. How do I see Libya as being a role model for anything, especially peace in the next Arabic country? So I asked, how do you derail an oncoming train? He answered with science, knowledge, and presenting the truth. As the late Gaddafi said, ignorance will end when everything is presented as it is. Be mindful, role model. Please explain to me what is happening, I asked. Social media in general. Poli-Sci Libby said, you know better than me about what is happening in my country, even though I have an academic qualification specializing in politics. A few days later, I came back and said I made a website for Libyan news. Meantime, I shared my Arabic homework with a big heart next to the word we. Yesterday, Elon Musk crew borrowed the symbol right down to the color scheme. Coincidence or charismatic lead? How many ways can you say tech gremlins? Yes, I'm being cute. I'm relaxing. From the words of tragedy, salvation is born. Oh God, protect my country, Libya, and my Libyan people. Al-Libi, February 22nd. Alone but powerful. When we cling strongly to the concrete version of memory, we are restricted to doing what we have always done in relation to it. The dilemma is that unresolved trauma forces us to repeat what we have done before. New and creative possibilities will not easily occur to us. This is Levine and Frederick's work. You know what? For me, the rain is kisses sent by the sky to its beloved earth. That's why I love to walk in the rain with you. Sentiment, sweet, something new and different in perspective. New perspective helps us heal. This is Taiwan 23 years ago. It's the messaging that's common here. To connect this with the previous image and message, focus on traveling the road in the rain. Start to believe that we are all the same, essentially. Culture varies, but the human condition remains. This helps me keep in touch with the spirit of the people. Good memories and pleasant imagery. Gaza before, wind down, relax. And this comes from the Gambia, you say, Feel at home. The way of life of Libyans. And yes, they laugh. They have an amazing sense of humor. We should all take note of it and enjoy the good company. Since the founding of the clinic in 1979, MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, has contributed steadily to a new and growing movement within medicine, psychiatry, and psychology that might best be called participatory medicine. Mindfulness-based programs have become an opportunity for people to engage more fully in their own movement toward greater levels of health and well-being as a complement to whatever medical treatments they may be receiving, starting, of course, from where they are at the moment they decide to take up this challenge, namely, to do something for themselves that no one else on the planet can do for them. A new and growing movement within medicine, psychiatry, and psychology that might be called participatory medicine. That's what a lot of this discussion has been about, is how do I participate in my own healing of my perceptions of the world around me. Here's Motaz on CNN. I'm now in Doha trying to make some more noise from outside. Take note of when it appears that people are actually listening. Given a half minute to think about it, I might convince myself. My Feed the People homework was followed by an NPR article sharing how the U.S. is now airdropping food into Gaza. The most important thing about this is the mindset. Beginning to acknowledge people's needs is a big step toward peace. According to industrial engineering, it's an iteration in the right direction, even if the motives come up for question. These were the contents of the package that family received from among the drops provided by Egyptian planes. It's a good food parcel for a family in Gaza.
احنا بشمال غزة الجوع والخوف سيطر علينا، لكن نستقبل الشهر الكريم بالفرح والتفاؤل لأنه رمضان كريم.
في غزة نحن وقلب جنين، الواحد منا يزهر آلافا، لن تذبل فينا ورقة تين. ما هان الحق عليك ولا خاف، عودتنا إيمان ويقين. لن نسكت لن نستسلم، لا لا لا, لا